everybody. Thanks for tuning in today. Today I'm going to kind of do like a vlog kind of overview of some stuff. It's a double first today because this is our first video game based video we're going to do, which is pretty cool. I mean, we've got a collection. I think the last time we counted it was 20 consoles and about 500 video games, I think. So, we've got quite a few things we could do with the video game arena here, and that's was our main intent. We were thinking about starting things, do like video games and do like toys and stuff like that, and just kind of toy time, meaning any kind of toy you play with, occupy yourself and have fun with. So we're using a loose definition of toy. So but it's a first in that regard that we're doing a video game thing, and then it's also a first because it was a request. Oh, and there's a cat behind me. We have a request from one of our subscribers. Let's see, it's TV46667 asked us if we could show off some of the Saturn games, because if you watch the Toyman video, we were sitting in front of mostly the Sega Saturn collection because, well, it's one of my favorite systems of all time. So I've got an interesting collection too, and evidently I lucked out kind of looking back into it, and I found a lot of rare games when I was actually into buying the Saturn new and the games new. So I've actually lucked into a nice collection. So what I decided to do was a top 10 list of my favorite Saturn games that I own. Not of all time, just that I actually have in my living room and can play whenever I want. So I'm going to do that, and then I have a couple honorable mentions that were games that are kind of cool or obscenely fun, but I decided shouldn't be included in the main top 10. And I'll get to those reasons when I get to them. So we'll go ahead and we'll start up here with some of the games I like. And like I said, these are personal faves, not rare games, not necessarily the most expensive games I own, just games that are cool or that I think are really fun and that you should have in your collection if you're collecting for the Saturn. So number one, I'm going backwards. Number 10, Cyber Speedway. Now, a lot of people say that Wipeout is the ultimate hover racer game, and I guess they're right. I'd never cared for Fallout because the physics of it just seemed too floaty even for a hovering sled. So back in the day, Wipeout was out and everybody was like, ooh, it's Wipeout, and I was more into the Saturn than the PS1 at the time. I just was not a fan of what Sony was doing at the time. So I found Cyber Speedway and I ended up getting it. And I have to say, I liked it. It kind of had like a rock band soundtrack. It wasn't just random techno. It didn't seem as crazy floaty. The graphics maybe were not as good as Wipeout on the PS1, but in general, it's a fun racer. It was pretty solid. It's got a story mode where you're like one of the few humans in this intergalactic race circuit, and you're like trying to get through this whole plot while you're racing. So it's really cool, and it's one of my favorites, and I definitely would recommend it. So the next game, and another thing that's been fun doing this is that we got all these down this afternoon and we're playing them, and I was remembering how good they were, and some my wife had never even played or seen before because we just hadn't had time to break the Saturn out for an extended time. So it's been kind of fun. But the number 9 is a really cool action RPG that I have that I love. Magic Knight Rayearth. Let's see which way they go. There we go. And I did beat this one. It is really fun. Pretty much back in the day. And when I said I kind of stumbled onto it lucking of having a really kind of rare collection, back in the day, pretty much if it said Crystal Dynamics or working designs on it, I bought it almost automatically. So I've got quite a few of either spread out on the PS1, Saturn, and I love them. But Magic Knight Rayearth is pretty much an action RPG, kind of in the style of Zelda. You, as per usual, it's based on an anime, so as per usual, you're a Japanese high school girl who's gone back in time or to some magical land to save the world, because only Japanese schoolgirls can do such a thing. And there are 3 different girls, and they have different color outfits, and they have different abilities based on their outfits there. See, I'm trying to get you some good artwork there. And, you know, like one's got a bow, and one has magic, and I think one had a sword, and then they're trying to save the world and everything, and it's really cool. Fun. I forgot how talky it was at the beginning, but, you know, most RPGs are that way, so can't fault it really. But a fun game. The next one is probably one of the best fighters of the period. I remember having lots of fun with it. If I remember right, it's broken into a few spots if you do a certain special move with something else, you know, like a combo, and it's almost like you kill everything in 2 moves. But fun nonetheless. And that is XMen, Children of the Atom. The #1 arcade smash. And you can see it got very good Game Pro reviews. I don't know if there were many Saturns that got perfect 5s, but hey. But yes, pretty much you pick any X-Men character to fight any X-Men character in a 2D side fighting game in the style of course, you know, the classic Street Fighters, Marvel superheroes and that sort of thing. But you can see on the back here some of the pictures. Very fun. Team-ups, of course. Marvel superheroes didn't have that. It just had single characters, but I think you get teams in this one. Incredibly fun, good graphics. So definitely a recommended fighter. Not the only fighter on this list, but definitely one of the better ones. Next, of course, is a classic game that anybody who owns a Saturn has to have the copy of this, or they're just not doing it right. And that, of course, is Panzer Dragoon. I picked the original. Just because I remember being at Toys R Us before the Saturn launched and seeing the videos. Remember that video where it shows the dragon and the rider kind of meeting up and doing stuff and just being, at the time, because you know the Saturn came out before the PS1, is a kind of a trump card by Sega, which pretty much probably killed their console business because they just came out with no games really. Or whatever games came out were so rushed to market they were crap. But anyway, Panzer Dragoon was one of those beginning games, and that beginning video where you're in there and you see the kiosk and you see this thing playing, and you had pretty much had a Sega CD at the best. Before that, you're just like, yeah, it's one of those blow away, just changing your kind of mood game. And I mean, it's in a lot of ways a standard rail shooter. You can see some of the screenshots there. But insanely fun and very cool. Of course, had a couple sequels because it had Panzer Dragoon Sway. I think it's Sway, that's on the Saturn that I have. And then it's got the Panzer Dragoon Orta, I believe, for the, gosh, was that the regular Xbox? Yeah, I think it was the regular Xbox had that. That's pretty cool. And of course, the role-playing game. But that is a very cool one. Now the next one, this is number 6 for those who are counting, is an incredibly good shooter that I played all the way through. It got very hard, but it was worth it getting to the end because the plot was pretty cool built into it. It had full motion video plot, everything like that. And of course I did mention if it was Crystal Dynamics, I was known to buy it almost on site. And that is Solar Eclipse. Now, this is a very cool shooter, space fighter game, but like a rail shooter. You're behind there kind of doing like a Star Fox thing, you know, flying around like this, and it's got power-ups and everything. It's pretty much a tale of a Earth ship going to investigate the moons of, I believe it was Saturn, and evidently something was going on there, like some colony, you lost contact and you're trying to investigate and find out what happens. And through the way you kind of find out some really kind of interesting things. Ride the Death Pony. There you go. That tells you all you need to know about the game right there. I thought the graphics for the time were very good. Over 40 minutes of full motion video starring Claudia Christensen. And I have to say, for full motion video of the day, not badly acted, not really. And the voice, you know, because they're actors, they're doing scenes, so it's not like, you, Jill, the master of unlocking, must do this. You know, nothing like that. I mean, I would recommend it. I don't think it's a very hard game to find. Yeah, very hard game to find. So, definitely one of my favorites. The next game I'm going to talk about here, and we are up to, number 5. We're halfway through the list. This one is a personal favorite of mine. Widely regarded probably as not one of the best fighting games ever, but it was one of the first 3D games ever. The first 3D fighting game ever. This is the second one that came out for the Saturn. It's, like I said, a personal favorite. The characters at the time, everything just clicked. They used weapons. The big thing that came out with the PS1 at the time, I guess, was Tekken, and I just never got into Tekken. I just didn't care for it. Virtual Fighter was worse than Tekken, and I didn't really care for Tekken that much. I mean, I can remember sitting up till 5 in the morning playing Tekken, trying to beat the last boss, because we played through the rest of the game in 2 hours and then spent 6 on the last boss, me and some friends. But this game was more fun. It was kind of, I don't know what the right word, whimsical I want to say, but I don't know if that's right. But I picked the second one because we played them both today, and this is definitely the better one to have if you have a Saturn. And that is Battle Arena Toshinden Ultimate Revenge Attack. There you go. One of my favorite fighters. I've got the remix, which I guess was actually a PS1 game brought over to the Saturn, and this is technically Battle Arena Toshinden 2 if you had a PS1 version. But one of the first series to actually have 3D with the dodge button. And it's pretty interesting actually, because gameplay wise you are pretty much a 2D fighter with a sidestep button. So like you would fight back and forth, and then you'd hit a button and you'd move in or out of the screen in kind of a circular motion around the other person, and then the two people could kind of circle each other. So it wasn't like modern games that are full 3D where you're running all around like crazy. It was more like I said, 2D Street Fighter. Oh my god, you're gonna hit me. Now I'm over here. You know, and then it kind of changes the angle of battle, and then you kind of come back to it and fight it out. And I like it. I don't know what it was. Ellis, the little like ballerina 12-year-old, it had weird characters. I don't know why it appealed to me, but at the time it was one of my favorite games on the Saturn, and I was a huge Saturn person back in its main heyday. So it still holds a good place in my heart. And like I said, this is personal favorites that I own, not necessarily best games ever for the Saturn. So the next game I'm going to talk about is actually, from what I found out, kind of a rare game. Came out late in the Saturn's life cycle. In fact, maybe one of the last games that was made for it. And just fun. Goofy, but fun. And you play let's see, were you cybernetically enhanced or you just wore suits? I can't remember. But either way, you're a fireman going into a building trying to rescue people and put out fires. And that game, of course, is Burning Rangers. Number 4 on the list. Now, my case actually has a crack right through there, so I'd have to get a new case for it. Otherwise, it's perfect condition. But, yeah, essentially, you're these cybernetically enhanced firefighters wearing these cyber fire suits, and you go into a building and the fire comes up and you have like a flame retardant shooter, and when the flames come up you can put them out, and if you don't get them in time they start spreading, and if too much of the level or room you're in catches on fire, it like overheats your suit and will kill you. So you're constantly fighting, and then of course randomly things will explode and then half the room's on fire, and then you're fighting like crazy to do it. And then interspersed throughout the entire level, room, wherever you're at, floor of the building, there are people you have to rescue. So it's kind of fun. You're always running around doing this, and then of course there's different characters. There's a girl and a couple different guys that go in there and do stuff. Show you a little bit back. It's wild. It's angry. It's like no enemy you've faced before. From the creator of Sonic the Hedgehog and Knights. Like I said, a rarer game from Sonic Team. Late in the life of it, 1998 Sega. So late in the Saturn's life cycle, but fun. So that brings us, let me look at my list here. Oh my gosh, we're up to number 3 already. So number 3 is a game that's been out on multiple systems. I believe it was a Super NES game. I believe it was a Sega Genesis game. It's probably downloadable now on Xbox Live because it's just awesome and it refuses to die. But the one I have is on the Saturn, which is, fully voiced and stuff. A little slow to load sometimes, but in general, one of the most fun side-scrolling games that probably you could get, and probably one of the best, if not the best, side-scrolling game on the Saturn. Earthworm Jim 2. Evidently I've got a little crack in it there. I didn't realize that. So, like I said, one of the fun ones. You're pretty much a sentient earthworm in a body suit that's all cybernetic that lets you run around and have adventures. And I believe you're actually out to rescue Princess What's-Her-Name from a group of maniacal bad guys. Look at there, and they even advertise it. Screenshots from Saturn version. And this game really does have good graphics. I mean, for the time, this is pretty nice graphics and everything. Yeah, Princess What's-Her-Name has been utterly abducted by the monarch wannabe Cy Crow, and it's up to you to go rescue her. But very fun. I mean, even at some points, the cyber suit will pull the earthworm out and use it as a whip to hit people. It's crazy. It's fun. Everybody that has a Saturn should own it, pretty much. So that brings us to the top 2 games on the Saturn that I own. So I'm going to go over these, and then I do have a couple honorable mentions that were games that are, one's really fun and one's interesting, and I don't know if I would necessarily actually say it's a super good game, but it's just one that I wanted to mention. So the number 2 game is probably the best multiplayer game you can get on the Saturn. Bar none. It's explosive. It's crazy. It plays up to 10 people if you have the multi-taps and you let the computer play a few people. And that game is Saturn Bomberman. An incredibly fun game. Me and the wife broke it up because she had never really played Bomberman before earlier today. We played that, I want to say 2.5 hours straight, and it was just the two of us and a couple computer people on there. If you've never played a Bomberman before, it's the ultimate 10-player party game. Essentially, see if I can get a picture. You have kind of like a grid level. There we go. And then you have bombs that when you set them off, blow up in a plus sign kind of pattern of flame. They'll destroy blocks, and they will kill people and kill power-ups. And you get power-ups where you can drop 10 or 12, or not 10 or 12, but you can drop 2, 3, maybe 4 bombs at the same time, and you can power them up enough where the flames almost go all the way across the screen. And then you get multiple people playing and dropping multiple bombs that are all blowing up halfway across the screen. And pretty soon the entire screen is flames, and there's 2 spots to stand on and 5 people that need to stand there. Yeah, it gets insane, it gets fun, it gets fast, because there are speed power-ups as well. Dinosaurs to ride to give you multiple hits so you don't necessarily die the first time. You can throw bombs over the side of the arena and have them bounce in the other side. You can throw them on top of bricks, and instead of blowing up the brick, they will hop along a line of bricks and come down on the other side and hit somebody that wasn't even expecting you to hit them because you're on the other side of the screen. And there's too much to keep up with that they can't keep up with what's going on your side of the screen plus what they're doing. So It is an insane, fun party game. I remember playing this for hours. We'll get 3 or 4 friends together and we turn that thing on and we have like 3 or 4 computer players on there, 8, 10 people on a screen at a time, all blowing up, doing all sorts of crazy stuff. Amazingly fun. You can set how many matches you want to play through, how long each match lasts, everything like that. So definitely a recommended game if you can get it. So that brings me to my #1 Saturn game, which is probably the most popular Saturn game that's out. Most people probably know what I'm going to talk about before I even get to it because it hasn't been on the list yet. And I think almost at this point, going to used game stores that sell bundles, to sell a Saturn and stuff, I don't even know if you can get a Saturn anymore without this game in some fashion. But it came with the its own controller, with its own little analog stick, so you could play it, because it just kind of was a much better game if you had it. And of course, that game is Nights into Dreams, the original. The Wii version is pretty good too. They're the Wii sequel. But yeah, one of the first kind of, I don't know, it's like a 2D rail flying game. You kind of go around, go through rings, very kind of Sonic-y, but in the air. You get to play it. It's very cool. The controller is almost necessary to play it. Luckily, I bought this with the controller when it was new, and then when the Saturn was declining and everything was clearancing out, I bought multi-taps and extra controllers, and I could probably actually, going back a little bit, play the Bomberman with 10 people if we really wanted to. But yeah, Nights, amazing game, awesome game. I've heard recently they're doing an HD remake for Xbox Live and PSN, so that's awesome, because that game really deserves an update like some of the other ones that have been getting it recently. So that is the top 10 Saturn games that I own. So, kind of a, not really review, not really anything like that, just my personal favorites of my collection that I think everybody should own if they have a Saturn. So I wanted to do 2 honorable mentions, and these are games I decided not to include for a couple of reasons. One, my Saturn is modded, so I can play import games on it, and I figured most people's Saturns were not modded, so it seemed kind of unfair to include an import game in the listing. So I didn't include one. The other one is just a kind of a rare game that probably most people are never going to get or play, so it seemed unfair to include it as well. So my first honorable mention is X-Men versus Street Fighter. An insanely amazing, awesome fighting game. Standard 2D side-scroller. You get teams. There's Cyclops and Ryu shaking hands going, oh. You get to go out there fighting. Me and the wife played this for, oh god, we probably played this for an hour or 2. Just going through and, see if you open it up here. I'm getting the disc out. You play it through because it uses this. Now think about this with today's modern consoles. Here is a RAM cartridge that adds 4 megabytes to the Saturn. 4 megabytes. Yeah, that's like a paltry amount of... A memory card has more memory than this now. But at the time, we played Marvel Superheroes, and we put this in. Marvel Superheroes, you had like a character, and you could do stuff, and it was cool. X-Men, you can have a couple characters on screen, and it's pretty cool. This one, oh my god, the animations in the background, like it's like the Arcade Perfect port. The animations are going insane. You can flip characters a half second after the other one just came on, flipping, flopping back out in screen wide, things blowing up. It's just insanely cool, insanely fun. And if you have a Saturn and you have it modded so it can play imports, you should own this one without a doubt. That one and the Darkstalkers, Vampire Savior, they should just both be owned if you have a modded Saturn. It's just without just requirement, just own them. So that brings me to my last honorable mention, and it's an interesting game. I go back and forth sometimes whether I say it's really a fun game, because it kind of mixes flying and 3D kind of walk around exploring, and the story is kind of slow, and it's okay. I mean, maybe top 20 games it would probably be in, but just not my top 10 fun, oh my god, let's play Saturn, you know. And I didn't include it because it's a rare game, and it just didn't seem right to include one that's hard to find or whatnot, because most people are just probably not going to get to play it unless they have some kind of emulator. So that's why it didn't make the list, and like I said, it'd probably be in the latter half of the top 20 anyway. But my video is getting close to a half hour here, so I need to start wrapping this up. But the game I'm talking about is Panzer Dragoon Saga. Unique, trailblazing, and wonderful for Next Generation Game magazine. I played it for a while today. Well, I mean, if you played Panzer Dragoon Saga, you know basically you're getting around on the dragons, and you're flying around, and it's kind of like a rail shooter, and it's cool. One of my top 10 games. The role-playing game, you walk around and you target stuff kind of like you're flying, but then you click on it to activate it or open the chest or whatever, and you do parts like that, and then you get your dragon, and then you fly around, and you can fly around on the map, kind of open world, and you target stuff and you shoot it to open chests like that you find out wherever, and then you fight stuff, and then it kind of goes to a kind of like a standard Panzer Dragoon shooter if you're fighting so it was a dragon or whatever, and you just kind of try and do this plot. It's okay. It's you know, not earth shattering. I mean, it was groundbreaking for what they were trying to do, melding the two together, you know, the two kind of genres together. But I don't know if I would say it was really a fun game. I mean, like, super fun, you know, like, oh my god, this is awesome. You know, it's kind of one of those you're playing because it's interesting, and plot-wise, you're kind of curious how it's going to go, you know, but not like I'm playing it just because I want to reminisce about how awesomely fun it was. Just kind of like, okay, you've got me hooked. This is an intriguing premise. Let's see where this goes. And that's about it. And to be honest with you, it may be one of the biggest Saturn games too, because the discs came in cardboard inserts. There are actually 4 discs. There are 3 on inserts, and 1 actually in there like a standard game. So a long game, which I don't know if this is the longest Saturn game, but you know, it wasn't getting Final Fantasy games like the PS1 was, so. And I can't really, off the top of my head, think of another multi-disc Saturn game, to be honest with you. If you know of another multi-disc Saturn game, leave a comment, let me know, because I'm just drawing a blank on what another one would be. I don't think anything on my list was that I can think of. I don't know, probably another RPG. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up here since I just hit the 29-minute mark. If you're not asleep in it yet, you kind of went through this with me. I hope you enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun breaking out the Saturn. I had a lot of fun playing the games and showing my wife some she never even got to play yet. Because when you get a big collection, it's hard to hit them all, especially when you have new people around. You know, it's like, hey, you want to come over this weekend and play 500 games straight through? You know, it don't work. So, but we had fun. We had talked about doing video game reviews or videos for a while, so maybe me or the wife will come back at a later date and we'll do one for a different system, or kind of break up the toy stuff a little bit with this. I mean, we definitely are going to keep doing toys. It's, you know, probably one of our main passions. Video games just happens to be the second passion. So, as always, let us know if you liked what you saw today. Let us know what we could do better. You know, subscribe, comment, follow us. We've got a Facebook page now. Let us know what you thought, and we will talk at you later. Thanks for watching.